In the previous video, if you just followed my coding, then definitely your application was hanging too. And when I entered run, the whole application was hanging, and I stopped the video, and I was thinking maybe just to re-record it again, because actually in 5 minutes I recognized what was this nasty error which I made. And then I decided that I think that could be very useful for you if you can find such a hanging situation. And what was the reason the whole browser page was hanging? How was that possible at all? And that's what I'm going to explain this second part. Hopefully it's a very second. I'm not going to enter and save here this run. No way. I don't want to hang my browser. Actually, it makes no really harm. You can simply stop the browser. It shouldn't be a problem. However, what is happening that in my timer, when I entered run, that was the default that changed this run into true. Therefore, just entering the run, when you have a Boolean attribute, remember property is also an attribute, unless you use a state, of course. So therefore, for Boolean, it is enough just to enter run, and it automatically changes this property value, which is linked to that attribute, to true. Therefore, this countdown function starts. But check out what's happening here. Then my function, this await, is outside of the loop. Therefore, my loop is really infinite. That is forever. Just running. There is nothing to stop this yielding the values. And if I just move this section from here, oh, I don't know why I made this mistake, to here, that's an enormously big difference. What is then the big difference? When you have the option to await for 100 every 100 seconds, then your browser will have an option. Remember, JavaScript is not a preemptive, a multi-threaded environment. No, it's absolutely a single-threaded cooperative that is an infinite loop. It will hang your application. However, if you include an await new promise, then this is the point where the JavaScript runtime can chime in and give access to the resources for the other parts of your application. So when this await promise was called, then any async replace will have the option to consume the yield values. So that is every 10 seconds this machinery should go. So hopefully you will understand, but it's really a tricky, nasty error. Therefore, always keep in mind that very often when you are programming with web applications, an await a new promise with set timeout for maybe even for 1,000, that is 1 millisecond, is enough to cure or help your application which might look hanging. So my friends, that is important. Okay, so my timer is not running, of course, but I corrected the error. Let's come here, and then let me just enter here run and save it and check out how it is going to work. Here you go. It's immediately start working. That is, it is displaying the milliseconds elapsed, so 10 seconds. So yes, that's how it works. And when we just come into this timer section and checking into the section, you can see that how efficiently this small block works here, that it is updating only this small part. And also you can see some of these comments here which lit HTML. This automatically inserts in the tree of the DOM for it to manage to monitor the diffing machinery. So that's how it works, and absolutely brilliant. Actually, my friend, this was the how to say, the conclusion. We have, or I have just created a timer. Again, what are again the important parts? First of all, in the header part, this was generated by the vide environment. There was an important script which the type was module, and it references in our source file the myelement.ts. So far so good. And then when I created the my timer application, the my timer web component, it won't work immediately if you just simply enter my timer here. It's very important to somehow get this executed, and the reason it should be get executed, because of course class definition, this is just a definition, and however this is the important part, the custom element decorator, and this is the part which should be executed. And because this does the registration of the web component, so it registers this class for this tag, this element name, and then this is the way you can do it. You should import the whole timer.ts, and that's all. Of course, you can also import it here either, so it really doesn't matter. Just to show if this is really the case, let me just modify this script. Module my element instead excuse me, my element, my timer. Yep. And Control S. Of course it started, it's no problem, but let me just remove from here, I mean uncomment it, and then here you go, I saved it and it works automatically. So you have there for two options: to include all of your custom elements, definitions, class definitions into here, or you just use one of these modules and then include them as importing that there. So that's what was very important. And also let me just show you that when I'm coming into the index.html, this my timer, it now is outside of this border, and the border is also limited to this my element. When I'm coming back to the my element and checking, this says that the host, there is a block and the border is a solid gray. And then, as I mentioned, that the host, what is the host? The host is actually the my element itself. So this whole styling is applied only for this my element. So therefore, if you want to include if I want to include my timer within this border, I should include my timer as part of this machinery. I have this my element, I mean sandwiched into it, and then that's why, as I explained previously, where I can use the slots. So let me just go into the index.html, and instead of applying it here, let's just remove it from this, and then let's do it as a separate p tag somewhere here. and check out, Control S. And here you go, we are immediately and automatically sandwiched our custom element as a part of the shadow DOM via a slot for the my timer. So when I'm coming to the my element, shadow root, to check out, I have here the button. Of course, I can click the buttons as seen here. That shouldn't be a problem. And then in the slot, the default slot, we have 3 p tags. And one of the p tag here is the last one. It contains our my timer, which also has its own shadow root. And then here is our ever running, infinitely running loop. So my friends, that was the second part or the third part of my explanation, and in the next section I am going to show you some of the tricky parts, some of the tricky things that you can implement. In the next section, what I'm going to do, I will include a number of timers as part of my my element, this counter, as you see here. And also I'm going to implement here 2 buttons, a start and a stop button, one button which either stops or starts all of the my timer components that I'm going to include. So keep watching and stay tuned. Maybe the last video is coming, which concludes my explanation, my introduction to web component development using vide and lit.